Well, hello. This is take number, I don't know how many, but I want to do this in like one shot and in under 5 minutes. So let's get right to the point. I have an idea. And I think this idea is interesting and bold, and at the same time, nothing new. What is it about? Well, it's about the way we handle files, or folders, or actually, no one wants folders. We just want to have our data somewhere, and we want to be able to structure them, tag them, in a way that we can actually find them when we, or make use of them in however we see fit. So what's my suggestion? Imagine you could put your metadata where your data is, in a way that is as native, as stable, robust, cross-platform, cross-tool, cross-whatever, interoperable, even like file names and folder names are. That's like the only common denominator that whatever program you encounter, they're like, in the end they have to agree on some kind of file name or folder name. What if all that is not necessary anymore, and you can just think of having as much storage space digitally as you have? This could be local, like a USB stick, hard drive, flash card, RAID cluster. You could go like local area network or online large scale network cluster. It doesn't really matter, or it shouldn't matter. What I'm proposing is, what if you could actually tag your data on a file system level? So what does it mean? If you have photos, images, or music files, or video files, or any other files, you probably structure them in one way or another. Or if you've put everything into the cloud, you may already have like, dude, I don't care about folder names anymore, I just tag that stuff. Great. How do you migrate that? How do you if I say, hey cool, would you, if you want to share a copy of your collection or a subset of your collection of whatever files in whatever format with me, well, with what I'm proposing, it wouldn't matter which application you were using to put that metadata or work with these files to tag them. It doesn't matter if you're using Clementine, Amarok, iTunes, or Winamp, or VLC, or whatever application to organize and structure your music. You'd be like, I just copy that over and it'll just work on your system. Well, the music collection seems like a weird example because it almost is like that, but only because the tags for music, MP3 was one of the formats that at that time, I think it's one of the formats where most people are common with embedded metadata, although they don't even know what that term means. It means that metadata, like title, artist, album, year, whatever, for music, it's embedded in the file format. So whatever you name your file, it doesn't really matter. You copy it over, and then inside that file, there's metadata, and the payload, which is your audio. Now what I'm proposing is, don't put it in a file, because it's tricky to get that information out of there, and then different file formats and so on and so forth. I just want to have metadata on the file system level. This means better than where your file name currently is. You could just imagine right click, and there you got whatever metadata your file has collected over its life cycle. It's just there. And you can watch this in your file manager, and you can also read-write this in any other application that wouldn't require its own database. It can have its own metadata layout. That's something for another discussion, but yeah, just imagine that you could read, write, edit, and handle metadata as natively and as seamlessly and tool independent and system independent as file names. But even better, because it's got like unicode encoding and it's just a string. One more before I wrap this first intro up is, if you can imagine that, now try to imagine that that the system I propose, or that the solution I propose, there would be no necessity, or there should not be any difference between an object that has a payload, like imagine like your audio file with your metadata and your music tracks, and let's call this an object, and an object that has no payload. That would just be a metadata entry. We could call this like a database catalog entry. It just refers to objects that actually have byte payload. Because then there would also, you could use and should actually use your file system like a catalog. And if you want to edit data, you can use any program that you want to, because it's just editing default file system attributes in value tags. And if you want to migrate, copy, and share data or reference to something, you can just do this like you handle files right now. You can drag and drop stuff. You can just like right click, new object, no payload, and start describing this, and then link it to, for example, here's a movie, here's a text file. I make a new object that goes like, hey, yeah, I'm a relationship between these objects. I can just like say, that's the movie and that's the script of that movie. And it feels like a file, because it's an object. So there's folder names, they would exist, but they'd actually be just strings with delimiters. And you can have multiple folder names. So an object can be... Now this is where I think I have to stop, because now you have to start thinking differently. Like there are no folders anymore, there are no file names anymore. And there's also no need for embedding metadata anymore, because it doesn't make any sense to write anything in, to have another layer of a file container format, because you just move that onto a file system level and have standard operations that are built into any programming language library, and any application can just assume that it can access, read and write those tags as it seems fit. And it'll not be in its own database, it'll be in the file system level. You can just copy paste this. So, yeah, I really think this is a good idea, and I'll try to go into more depth on what this would mean and how we could implement this. Well then, see ya.